Where do you think Texas needs to improve next year?
Yeah, I think the old adage is, it's so much Jimmys and Joes and not X's and O's. And so I think that's like the first spot that I really focused on. Like, I think Texas has a couple of glaring holes in the roster that they came into the year with. And no matter any level of coaching you do, if you have a guy that doesn't fit your scheme, it's not going to work for you. And one of the issues Texas saw this year was, especially along the offensive line, they've got guys that cannot move. They've got guys with slow feet. I was texting, I think I was texting you guys you and the other hosts over the weekend watching the A&M game, that like, it looks physically painful for some of these guys to pull. Like, it looks like it just hurts them to run. And that, to me, in this scheme, like, you need to be able to move your feet as an offensive lineman. And so I think Texas specifically roster construction is not great and not where it needs to be, I think, for this to be a championship level team. And I think interior offensive line is one of those spots. We talked about quarterbacks a ton. And I think we also need to look at, like, who's going to be the alpha dog in the wide receiver room. Does Texas need to add another running back? Does Texas need to add another linebacker? And maybe that comes down to, maybe the improvement they need to do is like self-scouting and self-awareness. They need to really be able to sit back and say, here's where our roster is at really, and here's where we need to improve, right? Again, we've been giving them a lot of benefit of the doubt on these things because of how good they've been thus far. But this year kind of proves that maybe there is a bit of a blind spot. So I think improving in that self-scouting, improving in their ability to honestly look at the roster, identify where are the gaps, and not buy their own brand in some ways to really be a team that's going to take it to the next level, because we saw that they have these deficiencies that are going to continue to bite them if they don't fix them.
Yeah, so number one for me, you kind of hit on it a little bit, is figure out what scheme you actually want to run. That's something to me. Like, I know he wants to run 12 personnel, obviously, but that's not a scheme. What kind of running scheme does this team want to be?
Yeah.
I still don't know the answer to that. We've tried outside zone. That was kind of the thing the first couple of years. And we tried inside and outside zone. This year we wanted to go more gap scheme. And then we went back to outside zone because it works. Yeah, it only works versus some competition. Like we said, when we were pulling guards versus Georgia guys, it didn't work because they had aliens running across our face and they were just blowing up the play or causing holding penalties. So I think that's the number one thing. Steve Sarkisian needs to sit down and just tell himself, what do I want our run game to be? Do I want to be a specifically outside zone team, or do I want to be a power team? And don't say you want to be both, because you're not going to find offensive linemen most likely that can do all of it. Figure out what you want to do and get very, very good at it. I mean, elite at it. And that's something I haven't liked about Sark's schemes. We've been doing so many things instead of concentrating on one thing. So when you go in the portal and you go and get these interior offensive linemen, do you want these bigger dudes that can run downhill and just maul people to death? Or do you want slimmer guys that are tall that can go out there and run on your outside zone and actually get out in front of people and stop with the holding because they have slow feet? Got to figure that out. That's the number one thing. And then once you go from there, then like I said, then you recruit towards that. I don't know what he's going to choose. I'm hoping that's even something in his mind instead of I just want offensive linemen that can run whatever scheme I want to run at whatever time, because that's not going to work. If that's what is going to happen, this team we'll win more games because the talent will be a little bit better and these guys will have more, reps. But you're not winning a national championship if that is the case. I need him to sit down and figure out what type of run team this is going to be for next year.
Yeah, my dad told me as a kid, like, if everything is important, then nothing is important. And sometimes that's what it feels like with Sark's offensive scheme. Like, it's like we're trying to major in too many things. And again, this is no shot at anybody who likes his restaurant, but like you go to like a Chili's and they can do all sorts of different types of things and they're all good, right? They're all good. But if I want something that's going to be elite at what it is, I'm not going to Chili's, right? Because Chili's they're going too wide, right? If I really want a well-cooked steak, I'm going to go to a place that specializes in steak. If I want a really good plate of enchiladas, I'm going to go to a place that specializes in Mexican food, right? And that, to me, is some of what the issue is with the roster construction. I think you're absolutely right. Like, Texas is trying to do too much, and I think they fell in love with the big humans of it all and didn't really think about what athletic profiles we need at the offensive line to run the scheme that we want to. And I think that, to me, kind of goes into my second point as well, is I think Texas really, and the offensive staff, I think specifically, really needs to mold themselves to the players rather than expect the players to mold to them, right? We saw it early in the season, and we said it on the live streams and on the post games. Like, it looks like Steve Sarkisian for a lot of the season was trying to make the offense what it should be, right? What he felt like it should be. A lot of these slow developing plays, putting Arch under center, and all of those types of things. And it sucked, like, period, end of sentence. We saw Arch struggle. He got rattled. He even talked about it, right? And then when they got into a scheme and they started scheming up more things that complement the players that they have, that complement the personnel that they have, they shifted things to get the ball out of Arch's hands faster to compensate for the offensive line deficiencies. They really allowed Arch to get in a rhythm and play more fast-paced and hurry up and use his feet more. You saw Arch's growth happen when they did those things. When you meet your players where they're at, instead of expecting them to meet you where you're at as an offensive play caller, that's when you get the most out of your team. That's when you get the most out of your elite players. And that's when we see Arch Manning cracking off these big runs. That's when we see Arch Manning really getting creative and using his feet to set up the pass and really keeping defenses honest with those feet, right? All of those things happen because Steve Sarkisian finally, I think, got out of his own head and said, hey, what is Arch good at? What are we good at as a team? And how am I going to draw that up on Saturdays?
No, completely agree. I think we've been saying it for 2 months now, basically. 11 personnel, up tempo, get the ball out of hands quickly. If you want to take a deep shot once in a while, fine. Nothing under center, all out of pistol and shotgun. He finally realized that basically last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. It went slowly, and I understand it takes a while to break away from what you want to do. But to me, I want to win. I don't care what it looks like. Like, people, that's the thing. People have been talking about Oklahoma, and it looks terrible. Guess what? Those guys are 10-2, and they're going to get to host a playoff game. So I'd much rather it look like crap, but it works because of the personnel you have, then, hey, I'm going to force it. And it may look pretty sometimes, but we're not going to make the playoff. That's the sort of thing I just don't understand. So completely agree with that one. For me, it's either getting a boom or like just a great wide receiver or a great running back. I need one of the two. I need the best guy out of the portal at one of those two positions. That's how I feel. I don't need both. I don't need you to go get Cam Coleman and whoever the best running back is, but you got to give me one of the two because we have to be just great at one of those two positions, in my opinion, in college football. I think there's going to be more wide receivers for you to do that, so I think that's easier, but I'm going to be honest, if your scheme truly is going to be 12 personnel and whatever running scheme you finally decide, this is what we're going to do, then I'd rather go with the running back. So I think, especially in Sark's scheme, when the running game gets going, that's when you can exploit all the levels of the field when you have a talented quarterback like Arch Manning. So I would rather go that way, but I'm fine if we go out and get someone like who just jumped in the portal today and said, and this was one of the names I floated out there, Nick Marsh is in the portal. That dude's a number one bona fide wide receiver. If you put him on Texas next year, he's probably going to have 900 to 1,000 yards. His freshman year at Michigan State, when that team wasn't good, he had like 700 yards receiving. He's a very good wide receiver. He'll probably be a first or second round draft pick when he comes out, but you have to get a haymaker at one of those two positions, whether that's wide receiver or running back, in my opinion.
I think it's huge. Yeah. And I've stated my case about the running back, and I feel less convicted about the running back because we've seen what Trey Wisner can do behind a good offensive line. So I think I had wide receiver one as one of the things on my list, right? Texas needs a bona fide wide receiver one. They need a dude, and they need a dude that folks have to scheme around, right? It's not, and Ryan Wingo is an incredible weapon. And don't get me wrong, like Ryan Wingo's had some incredible plays, but I don't think he's a guy who, he's not a gravitational guy. He's not a Cam Coleman, right? He's not a guy who folks like, if we don't cover him, things are going to go poorly for us. I love DeAndre Moore. DeAndre Moore is tailor-made to be a more talented Jordan Whittington, which is really weird to say because Jordan Whittington was one of the highest touted kids out of the state of Texas, but those injuries slowed him down a bit, right? So he's a guy who maybe, let me say, who Jordan Whittington could have been pre-multiple season-ending injuries. Right? Like, that's what DeAndre Moore really can grow into. But they don't have a dude who's a wide receiver one. Emmett Mosley has showed some flashes of it this year, but I don't know if he has the top-end speed to do that, right? I don't know if he's going to be that guy. So I'm with you. They need a bona fide wide receiver one in this on this team next year to really maximize what Arch can do. If you really want to be able to show off Arch's big arm, you need a guy who folks have to cover over the top, right? That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, and my last one is penalties. So, guys, we ranked 127th in penalty yards out of, I think there's 134 Division One teams. So, either way, you're in the bottom 10 of college
Yeah.
football in penalty yards. Can't happen. Will it? I'll do this for the next episode and just let you guys know. I guarantee when I go and look at the last 10 national championship winners, none of them were in the bottom 10. I bet none of them were in the hundreds. They were probably at worst in the 70s. I bet that's the worst one you could find. Because you can't be a statistical outlier and win a national championship in penalty yards. It's not going to happen. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot way too often. And unless, like, I'm going to be interested when I look this up. I wonder what 2019 LSU is. That's like the only team I can think of the past 10 years that, you know what, we shot ourselves in the foot a lot, but guess what? We had Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow. We can do that. Texas does not have that. So Texas cannot overcome being 127th in penalty yards. That has to stop. I was surprised. I looked up red zone. Red zone is 64th. That can literally stay the exact same. If we are the 64th best red zone offense next year and we bring down the penalties to, you know what, the 64th best, this team can win a national championship. Until then, this team isn't winning a national championship. You have to get much better at that.
Yeah, and that goes really hand in hand with my last one as well. It's like just mental toughness, right? I don't know how you quantify that, but when you look at penalties or you look at how Texas does not respond to penalty or to make those negative plays, like, you know, there are teams that we watched it, I think, over the weekend where there were teams that had a massive holding penalty, put them back, and they still converted a first down, or they had a false start that put them at a 1st and 15, and they were still able to convert on a first down, right? It feels like the moment Texas has a negative on a drive, it's cashed, right? You can just chalk it up as a punt, right? Texas will be rolling on a drive, false start, drives over. Rolling on a drive, have a holding call, drives over, right? Like Texas's ability to overcome those things. And we saw some of that this year with them being able to win those overtime games, with them being able to hold off Vanderbilt, but like being mentally tough enough to like overcome those things in the moment. And I think also some of that is also some of the mental toughness there is also like bad teams. Like that's the weird thing about this Texas squad. It's like they show up for the good teams. Like, do they have the mental fortitude to be locked in when it is Vanderbilt? Or not Vanderbilt's a bad example, right? When it is Mississippi State, when it is Kentucky, right? Because I feel like there's a bit of lackadaisicalness when they play those lower tier teams. The games that I worry about the most, Florida, a team that won 4 games this year. The reason why Texas isn't in the college football playoff is because they lost to a bad team because they weren't locked in and they didn't beat a team like Florida, right? So are you mentally tough enough to show up week in and week out when it's not a college game day game, when it's not a rivalry, when it's not all those things? That to me is mental toughness.
100%. I completely agree with that. And it's something where, you know, it's when that does happen, it's always the quarterback for whatever reason that has to bail us out. There's never really a wide receiver where we flip it out there, he bails us out, or running back hasn't been able to bail us out. I think the biggest case in the point of that is, you know, Arizona State in the bowl game. Kelvin Banks, false start, and then Quinn Ewers has to make a call at the line of scrimmage and then bail you out on that with a good throw as well. So Arch does that sometimes, but other than that, we need someone else. If you're going to have that mental toughness from the quarterback, you're going to have the mental toughness from a couple other guys on that team that have to overcome, because it always seems like the quarterback is the one that has to bail out the Texas offense when it goes bad, which is a recipe for disaster because, again, the quarterback has enough on their plate. They can't do everything. You can't get a bunch of false starts and expect them to pull you along and out of it. So I completely agree with that. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. This is the 80th edition of Texas Longhorns Live. We really appreciate you guys being here.